In Studio B is Uncle B, national champion at BYU, quarterback, dual threat analyst. Blaine, what do you think, man? Where is the difference between BYU and Utah as far as a gap goes in the last 7 years?
Well, it's interesting because whoever that was that tweeted that it's down the stretch that they're not making plays, I would submit that when a team's beat you a number of times, how you play early makes a huge difference in how you play the rest of the game. Because you've got this mindset of this weight of the world on your shoulders, that there's this streak, and we've got to do this. And if you come out early and there are errors that are made, in particular turnovers, early in a ball game, and you let Utah jump on you early, now there's some doubt. So now there's some doubt as you play the rest of the game, and you get to the end and you haven't finished. So I don't think it's just that you don't finish. I think that early in these ball games, if you go back, not in every single one of them, but in the vast majority of these contests over the last 7, BYU has had turnovers that have cost them points early in the game that put them behind. And then you start to go, oh no, here we are again. So the weight gets heavier, and sometimes players play tight. So I don't think the physical gap is there right now. I mean, I went on Bill Riley's show last week, our good friend from up at the university, and on our shows last week, and said, I think these teams are really evenly matched now. You could make an argument that Chase Hansen's the best defensive back on the field. Fred Warner's clearly the best linebacker on the field. Lotulelei is the best defensive lineman on the field. But, if you start to go, hey, Utah's probably a little bit better on the D-line. BYU's better at linebacker. I'd say the secondaries are fairly even. Carrington is a standout. So he's all by himself in talent.
On the edge,
right.
At wide receiver, Utah a little bit better.
So he's all by himself. So there's a guy that's by himself that BYU doesn't have anybody that matches up with right now. He's all by himself in the Pac-12 almost. There's a couple of guys that are similar. Offensive line, neither team really could get a great run game going. I would attribute that to how good these defensive fronts are. Not necessarily that the offensive lines aren't bad, but those guys are probably washed. BYU may even be better up there. BYU is clearly better at tight end right now than Utah is. So what it comes down to is, and I said this last week, whichever quarterback can play better, be more dynamic, and make more plays, that team will win in a close ball game, because this is going to be a defensive, low-scoring battle. And in this ball game, Huntley was out of his mind. He made plays when guys were in his face. I think back to the Taki play when he was getting smacked in the face and he stood there and made a throw in a spot where the receiver Wilson could go get it. He was able to make plays under heat where he'd just get the ball out, didn't take sacks. That wasn't because they protected him unbelievably well. Sometimes he just got it out, like athletically got it out, or he took off. And I think the difference in the game was his run contributions to the game. So not necessarily what he did in the pass game, because it wasn't phenomenal. He made some good plays, but it was because the run dynamic of that offense with a quarterback run game was difficult. Defending everything else, that was difficult, and that was the difference in the ballgame. They were able to get some rush yards with him making big plays with his feet.
Let's talk about Tanner Mangum. On the last play of the game, he gets his ankle rolled up on, tied at Mercez, and then reports of an MRI. In your day job, you work with hospitals, so you know what's going on in there. Tell us about, if a guy gets an MRI, what are you looking for?
So they're either trying to rule in or rule out soft tissue damage, ligament or cartilage damage to that ankle. So he had that ankle wrapped up. You saw him looking at it. So they would do an evaluation of Tanner, and what they would do, they'd evaluate it, they'd compare it to the other ankle, and if there's more laxity in that ankle, if that ankle joint gaps when they're putting a little bit of stress on it, then they would suspect, you know what, we better send this in. It doesn't feel exactly like the other one. There's some laxity in that. Let's send them in, and let's rule out that there could be a ligament tear in there. And an MRI is able to look at soft tissue, unlike an X-ray. So they can look and say, has that ligament been stretched? Is there some thinning in the ligament? Is there swelling in that ligament? So is there fluid gathered around that ligament? Is there a tear? They can identify, if there's a tear, they're going to be able to identify that really easily on the MRI. And so they send them over there, if that's what they did, and that's what we've heard, to either rule in or rule out soft tissue damage, ligament or damage or cartilage damage.
So you're afraid it's worse than a sprain, but there's no break.
Right, a simple X-ray would tell him whether there's a fracture in that ankle,
and he would know if it was broken.
Yeah, and so it was serious enough in their initial evaluation that they sent him for an MRI. Now the MRI could come back negative, and they could go, you know what, everything looks okay. There's some swelling in there, and we're going to rehab him. Or it could come back, and it could be hey, there's a significant ligament tear in there, and that's a lot more debilitating, and the rehab is a lot longer. So BYU doesn't comment on the results, but certainly they know now what Tanner's status is. If he's had that MRI and a radiologist has read that MRI, they know exactly where they stand with him and a likely how long he would be out if it's more serious than a simple.
Okay, so just for those that are not in the medical field, and I know you work in the medical field, Blaine, to a degree, worst case scenario, best case scenario in terms of time missed, if you know,
best case scenario is it's a simple ankle sprain. The higher up, the harder the rehab is. So you hear whole high ankle sprain. So the higher up, the harder it is to get those ligaments to respond.
Because John Beck dealt with this his senior year.
Yeah, and they just taped it up, and sometimes he seemed like he was running with a club down there.
Yeah,
with a club foot down there.
Yes.
And so a simple ankle sprain, you can try taping and supporting and doing all that. And you know, sometimes that's a few days to a week or whatever. If there's significant ligament damage, I mean, worst case scenario is it's bad enough that you have to have surgery. And then there's the in between that it's stretched enough or damaged enough. So you could be anywhere from a few days to 6 to 8 weeks.
Man,
you know, depending on how severe the report comes back on the damage to the soft tissues in the ankle. So there's a wide spread of what that MRI told them, and then what their plan for rehab would be. So I know that Dr. Kimball and Dr. Wallenstein, you know, the team orthopedic surgeons, they've taken a good look at it, evaluated it. I think Dr. Kimball is the guy that was at the game. Yeah, Dr. Kimball is the guy at the game. I'm sure he evaluated it, looked at it, and then he would be the one, if Tanner got an MRI, that would say, you know what, let's send him for MRI to rule out or rule in these possible complications to the soft tissue.
Dr. Blaine Fowler in Studio B.
So let's connect this with the Wisconsin game. So let's say that Tanner Mangum isn't 100% and he plays that way, or he can't play at all, and Bo Hodge is the guy. How does this affect BYU offensively against Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's even if Tanner is limited mobility-wise, it hurts. Because Wisconsin, the scary news for BYU right now is this may be the best team they've played all year this week.
Oh, boy.
The good news is it's at home, and Utah's very comfortable coming down here. It's just down the road. They play at elevation all the time. They understand the rivalry. They get all that. Wisconsin, BYU has a big advantage, and Wisconsin has no idea what this environment is like. They haven't played at elevation. It's a long travel. It's a long trip across country. They haven't played in the Rocky Mountain time zone, I don't think, for a long, long time. So there are some advantages there that gives BYU a little bit of an edge that they didn't have against Utah. Wisconsin doesn't have the overall team speed that LSU does. LSU's just fast at every single position on the field, period. When I was down the sideline watching their D-line warm up, I'm going, wow. These guys are scary. If I was playing quarterback trying to run away, I think all those big guys can catch me. That's not good. But Wisconsin's reputation is they're always unbelievably physical and big and strong up front. They're an NFL offensive lineman factory. And so BYU is going to have to be really stout and play really physical. And they're going to have to play their best. So a non-mobile Tanner Mangum may not be a good thing.
Okay.
And if Bo Tanner, he can't play quarterback, can he? If Hodge plays, you know, the one thing that he can bring, he's really athletic. And so even if things look confusing to him because he's not very experienced, he does have the ability to run around and make plays with his feet. And maybe that would be an advantage to have somebody that can do that in the game if Tanner's limited.
Okay, how many points will it take for BYU's offense to score to probably, I mean, let's just say be in the game against Wisconsin late?
So that question choked me up. No. I've always felt Bronco Mendenhall used to say if you can hold a team under 24, you should win. And I think a good team like that, if BYU can get to 24. The one thing so I've 3 weeks I've watched them very closely, and I've looked at every single play of every game on film. I'm still very confident this is a very good national level defense. I think they've been put in some bad positions because the offense hasn't been productive, but I think it is an outstanding defense. I think Utah's defense is very good. I think LSU's is, we use the word elite. I think LSU has an elite defense.
Thank you, Blaine.
But so I am confident this is a good defense, and they can hold Wisconsin down, especially on the road. So to me, the magic number is 24.
Okay.
Get above 24. BYU scores 27-20. I think they have a chance in this one. And sometimes football's not about just the raw talent on the field. It's about matchups. And in the past, and I think again this year, BYU seems to match up better with big physical teams that try to punch them in the mouth than they do with teams that try to spread them from sideline to sideline and attack them that way, and then defensively, you know, bring speed and blitzes and all kinds of things. And so So from a matchup perspective, I've always been more comfortable with BYU playing a team like Wisconsin than a team like LSU. So perhaps those matchups come out okay. Am I going to be surprised if BYU beats number 10? Not that surprised. I mean, that's a long shot, but not crazy surprised.
Interesting.
You know,
even after what has transpired through the first 3 games.
Not crazy surprised. And here's why. Go back to what I just said. I believe this is a very good defense. When you have a very good defense, you stay in every game. Sometimes you lose a lot of close games. But sometimes your defense rises to the occasion and holds down a great team, and that great team makes a mistake or two, and you get a pick 6 and now all of a sudden you get the break and the momentum you need to win by a small margin. So will I be flabbergasted if BYU beats Wisconsin? I actually won't. I don't, the odds are that they won't, but if they do, I'm not going to go, wow, I never expected that. The defense is good enough to keep them in games, and there's always a chance.
All right. Who knows what's going to happen with the BYU offense on Saturday, and that honestly kind of makes it entertaining and exciting to speculate on that.
Because of the defense, they can stay in any game with anybody.
All right. Also, the storyline, and we'll talk about this more as we move on through the week, but Ula Tolotau going against his former team, Wisconsin. Yeah,
there's a lot of good storylines for this one. I'm
stuff
excited.
there.
Yeah.
Blaine, great stuff. We look forward to you on After Further Review tonight, 7 Eastern, 5 Mountain, brand new episode.
Thanks, guys. We'll be there.
Uncle B, bringing it. I might have to start calling you Dr. B, man.